Do you remember when you first tried acting, even if it was just for fun, messing around?
Okay, first acting ever. That was probably, in my living room somewhere with my brother, with some stupid costume that we'd created. So I don't remember specifically about that, but oh God. I mean, I've just done plays ever since I was a kid, but we always would dress up and mess around and sing and dance in our house. My brother and I, and my mom was a big proponent of theatrical stuff, and we were always doing silly things like that. So probably at home somewhere, that real kind of awareness of, oh, this is the career I want, probably didn't come for a long time. I remember wanting to be Annie on Broadway. I saw the show, and that was the goal. The 8-year-old goal was to be Annie. And that, I think, was the initial real bite of the bug of, oh, I want to perform, and I want to do it with this show. And it was very much wrapped around the musicality of it as well. That was a big part of my childhood, singing and that kind of thing. So then I kind of transitioned into less about music and more about acting. I don't remember, though, the moment that it was, this is the career, this is the path. I had started to do it at such a young age. I was 14 to 18 when I was on Seventh Heaven. It just is what I did. It's what I have always done. So honestly, would say probably in the last, 5 to 7 years is really the realization of, oh no, this is my career.
Right.
Forever, hopefully. So that might sound weird, but...
No, well, I mean, I guess one thing, this International Modeling and Talent Association event...
That was the first accessibility I had to people from this world. Mm-hmm. Agents and managers and casting agents and other kids in big numbers who wanted to do what I did or was interested in, having this kind of experience. So I think that experience really, I think, solidified for my parents that they weren't crazy and I wasn't just this, a psychotic kid who was just really interested in being in some kind of performance art. There were managers and agents and people who said to my parents, oh no, there's something interesting about her. You come to Los Angeles, come to pilot season. So, I mean, I was 11. I don't know what I was thinking I was going to be doing. I don't remember thinking, well, I don't remember thinking I want to be a movie star. I remember thinking I want to be an actor, that I want to be a singer. So when is pilot season? Like February, March, April? Somewhere around there. So we'd come up for 3 months a year, audition for pilots, audition for films, for whatever, commercials, modeling stuff. And the IMTA got me there. Mm-hmm. They connected me with an agent who wanted to have me as a part of their client list, and a manager, and an acting school. So I was in school. I was in regular school. I was also in like a kids acting workshop kind of thing, which was really kind of intense and wonderful. And I was coming to Los Angeles 3 months of the year.
And so I guess it would have been the third pilot season that you were out there when sort of you struck gold. And did you realize right away that this was one that was going to be special?
For no paycheck at all, at least back then. Right. And for me at that time, I was 14. Right. And it's a real question mark. If the pilot will get picked up, you just never know. So we were really excited, of course. We did the pilot, and then we just waited to see if it was going to get picked up. In that interim, I got Yuli's Gold with Peter Fonda. So there were these two things back to back, and I think maybe it was that moment. To look back on it, I feel like finally you're getting a little bit of, it's not just rejection anymore. It's like, oh, I got something, and then I got something else. That was really interesting.
And big things.
Yeah, for me at the time and in my life and in my career, it was massive for me. And I think maybe that was the moment where my parents thought, oh, okay, so this isn't just going to be some awful experience where my kid just gets, rejected over and over and over again. And then, of course, we got picked up. So then we were in and out of Los Angeles and Colorado. My parents were living half the time. One of them was living with me, while the other one was living in Colorado. Then they all came out to LA. Then they went back to Colorado. It's like all over the place.
Wow. Well, actually, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wondered, that begs the question, one of the questions that I had, which is that, were you able to make that adjustment to being a public figure and in the spotlight? Was it difficult, or did you feel like it was fairly seamless?
I think at the time I was kind of oblivious. I think I was excited about the show. It's what I had wanted, and now here it is. And then I think when you get into the show, you realize how much of a commitment it is, what a diligent job it is going to be, and it's full on. So some of the sheen goes away kind of quickly when you're working day in, day out, 6 a.m. calls, and you have to do school on top of it. So I think very quickly it was, wow, this is a job, and I have to take this really seriously. But you're also 14. So at the same time, you just go to work, you're doing it, and everyone's making it really fun. It was a fun place to work. And I don't really remember feeling the pressure of a public life. It didn't really feel like that to me at the time. My parents were very, very mellow and very supportive of a very normal life. So I was on soccer teams, I was going to voice lessons, because that's what I always did at home. They just kept me involved in extracurricular activities. So I would work, I would go to soccer practice, and then they would take me to a tournament over the weekend.
Unfortunately, I guess this was right before the era that we are now in, where you got a camera guy following you everywhere or something like that.
Oh yeah, way before.
You're right.
This is when that never happened.
Right.
Plus, nobody cared. I was a kid on Seventh Heaven. It wasn't interesting,
right.
Really. Yeah, it was very different back then. I had my life. And not to say that it wasn't challenging at times, and some days I didn't want to go to work, and some days I wanted to, be a kid and cut my hair off and dye it blue and get a nose ring. I was a teenager just trying to work it out. And yeah, it definitely was. I wasn't any different from any other kid in regards to insecurity and on trying to figure out who you are and what you like and who your friends are and where you fit in the world.
So when that sort of chapter came to an end, I know it trickled out because there were a number of years when you came back, but was it always clear to you that you wanted to pursue film work rather than additional TV work, or and what were those early years of trying to break into film like? I've read in other interviews you said it was not always, it was in many ways frustrating initially.
I think since I had done TV for such a long time, and at the end of my experience with Seventh Heaven, I just felt like I couldn't bring anything fresh to it, and I felt nervous about jumping into another television show where I was playing the same character on a daily basis for 4 to 7 years or whatever it may be. And it was something new to do, film. That was exciting, that was different. I could travel, and I was young, and it was like the world that I hadn't really had a taste of. But yeah, it was very hard. That was a time in the industry where you were either on television or you were in film, and you barely crossed over. And if you crossed over, you were kind of a C-lister. And I definitely felt that way for a long time. I really was trying to bridge that gap, if at all possible.
And this was because, it's up to you if you want to get into specific projects, but I guess the sense I got from these other interviews was that it was either, it was sort of the sexy part or the violent part, but it was not the sorts of developed characters that you were after.
Well, I think at the time as well, I had been playing Mary Camden, who was, she only had so far she was allowed to sort of expand and to complicate as she was as a character, and that was right for that show. So I wanted to. I was looking for something violent. I was looking for something dark and scary and sexy or interesting. I was at a time as well where I was like, I'm a woman now. I'm 17 and 18, so I know everything now. I know what I need.
Right.
You know, it was that moment
Right.
of my ego was huge, like every 18-year-old, I think I know everything.
Right.
So it wasn't just that, I mean, I was absolutely looking for intricate, complicated characters, but I needed to do something just completely opposite.
Get it out of your system.
Yeah, it was just, I needed to do that for myself. And the project that did it for me was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was so different from the way anyone knew me before. And to this day, it is one of the hardest creative experiences I have ever had. And I think one of the most challenging, and one that I'm actually very proud of. When I look back at it, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did that every day, in and out. And I look back at it, not often, but occasionally, and I'm just kind of surprised. I'm kind of impressed at my young self doing that kind of thing. But it was so perfect, because doing something so extreme,
Other side.
people saw me different, in a different way. And that, oh, you know, not only do you look different, you are more of a mature person, slightly, but you're doing a different kind of work. And that's interesting. So that film really, I feel, kind of was my bridge into film, into the film world.
I guess first The Illusionist and then Home of the Brave, or whatever it was. Those two, both in 2006, were suddenly, I think you really impressed a lot of people that year.
Those were two really exciting projects. The Illusionist, #1. I mean, I was thrilled to be a part of that. That still, I think for me, that's my favorite film I've ever done. And even as just as a film as a whole, not necessarily my performance, but the
Great
movie
movie.
as a whole,
Yeah.
I loved it. It's so beautiful. Home of the Brave, really exciting creatively. Not a lot of people saw it. I feel like I do a lot of movies like that, but for me, those are the films that I probably grow the most and have the most interesting creative experience. So yeah, really opposite, interesting, diverse work, and very exciting for me, because it was finally a moment where I really was able to have some different opportunities, and people were believing me a little bit more, and I feel like I was gaining a little bit of cred, just a little bit,
no, definitely.
slightly,
A lot of people
in
have
this
said
world.
that, yeah. And so now this movie that's about to be unleashed on the world, Hitchcock.
I read the script, and everyone was talking about the Janet Leigh character, of course. And I initially thought, well, yeah, Janet Leigh, that'd be amazing. Do I look like her? Can I look like her? How do I make my hair to go to this audition? And then I heard that, well, maybe Scarlett was looking at that character. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I should look at the Vera Miles character. And let me look at that again. And I remember when I was reading it, you kind of get blinded by, oh, but it's Janet Leigh. And that relationship in that movie, and the whole thing, the mythology, the legend of her relationship with Hitch and her relationship to that film, and how it sort of really defined her career for the rest of her life, and his as well. And then I read it again, and this character just jumped off the page. She was just poppy. She popped into my face. And I thought, wait a minute, who is this woman? I don't really know much about her. And I thought, well, there might be some real opportunity here, because she is an enigma. She is a bit of a mystery. And maybe it's not necessarily safer for me to explore this, but I actually started to feel like I was more curious about her. So I went in and read for her, for Sacha and the other producers. And then he asked me to come back and read again. Oh, and Anthony was there, so I read with Anthony. Then he asked me to come back and read again. I full on decked out, Illusionist style, but like that period, hair, makeup, the whole thing. And then came back and read with Anthony a second time and got the part. And was so thrilled, actually, to do the Vera part. And at that point, Scarlett was doing Janet, and it just worked out absolutely perfectly, I think, in my opinion. So that's how I got the part. So I heard of the film, and then I spoke to her grandson. I spoke to Vera Miles' grandson, because she does not have a public life at all, not interested in having it, which I completely respect, and did not want to, be some annoying gnat like bugging her about talking to me. But her grandson, who I believe is probably one of the best historians of his grandmother's life and career and who she is as a woman, sat down and talked with me for hours. And I asked him a million questions, and he was very hesitant about, you know, what were we doing and what is the vibe and how are you going to portray her? Because I think the mythology of her and her relationship with Hitch is a little bit different than it actually was. So after speaking with him, my initial instinct was, yes, they had a bit of a struggle, a challenging relationship. He wanted to make her a big star. He wanted to push her in this one direction and give her a career like Janet Leigh, and that's just not what she wanted. But the two of them had such a respect for their art and for the creative process and respect for each other that they had a playful relationship. You know, it was underlying some heavier things there, and he wanted something and she wanted something different. They had to agree to disagree at this point, which didn't make him very happy, but it's really who she was as a woman. And that was the way in for me. And to sort of really have this she was kind of irreverent about, you know, her experience on Psycho in a sense, but not to say that she wasn't fully prepared, 100% ready to go. And you want to dress me in a way that I think is kind of silly and do this because maybe you're a little bit irritated with me? That's fine. I'm ready to go. You cannot break my concentration. Well, so they had that kind of relationship.